G'day. If you're looking for a good, cheap, reliable bike, a bike to get to work on, or even a first bike to hone your skills on, in my experience, you just can't go past any of these bikes. And I haven't just plucked them out of my arse either. I have first-hand experience with every single one of these bikes mentioned in this video. While all 5 bikes are quite different, they can and will serve the same purposes. In this video, I will briefly discuss each bike and put up their specs at the end of the video for you to directly compare each bike. First up is the absolute oldest bike on this list, the Honda CX500. While this bike is certainly pretty long in the tooth, it is, to this very day, still a very good motorcycle. Released way back in the late 1970s and manufactured into the early 1980s, initially the bike was met with a lot of skepticism. This was mainly due to its unusual engine configuration, which to a certain degree resembled the Italian-made Moto Guzzi's. The Honda's engine, however, is liquid-cooled, and the engine cylinders were mounted at an angle. This enabled the exhaust to clear its radiator, and it also enabled the carbies to be tucked in closer so as not to interfere with the rider's legs. The engine also used push rods to operate the 4 valves on each cylinder, which was another unusual feature on a Japanese-made motorcycle. As far as adjusting the valves themselves goes, you just cannot get any easier access than this. The engine produced around 50 horsepower, depending on the model year, and it had a top speed easily in excess of 100 miles per hour. I owned one of these bikes myself, and although mine was the custom version with a smaller diameter and fatter rear wheel, with the typical cruiser styling, it was a great motorcycle and I absolutely loved it. It never let me down, not even once. All CXs feature a low maintenance shaft final drive, and this combined with their Comstar wheels, which had tubeless tyres, made for a very simple and cheap motorcycle to maintain. The bike's engine loves to rev. And while it may only be a 500cc, it is quite a large bike, with plenty of torque. It will easily carry a rider and passenger, plus enough gear for long distance touring. The later 650 version of the CX had different styling, more power and more torque, and is every bit as good, if not better than the 500. But I would strongly recommend staying away from the turbocharged versions of both bikes. While these bikes are today very collectible, they do have a lot of technology on them. In fact, back in the day, when they were first released, they were by far the most technically advanced motorcycle in the world. Groundbreaking, in fact. But this technology was very early technology, and it is not reliable or easily fixed if problems occur. I'm not saying they are not good bikes, but if you're after cheap and reliable transport, do not even consider a turbocharged version. A decade or so later, Kawasaki launched its GPZ 500. The bike was basically half of Kawasaki's legendary GPZ 900 Ninja. Its liquid-cooled engine is a double overhead camshaft, 498cc parallel twin, also with 4 valves per cylinder. It produced around 60 horsepower. This bike is physically smaller than the CX500, weighing about 30 kilos less. Being smaller with higher rear foot pegs, it's much less suitable to two-up riding than the CX, but it is substantially quicker, faster and a very easy bike to ride. Making it an ideal second bike or something to get to work on. Not only that, they are a very nimble machine with excellent brakes, and they are also very economical on fuel. It too has home mechanic friendly screw and lock nut valve adjustment, although it's a bit more of a complicated procedure to even get to the valves to adjust them compared to the Honda. But at least you can still do it. One of my mates owned a GPZ 500 and an ER5, which is a later model naked bike with the same engine, and has never had an issue with either one of them. He's actually still got an ER5 at the moment. While this model may look a tad boring, stick a bench or a rack and bag on the back of one of these and you have an ideal general purpose bike. The Suzuki GS500 and its full-fared brother the 500F has a double overhead cam 487cc parallel twin engine with just the 2 valves per cylinder. Unfortunately though, the GS500 uses shims for valve adjustment, which for most riders means they will need to get the bike serviced at a dealer. It produces around 51 horsepower. Like the previous Kawasaki, the GS500 has many qualities that new riders will appreciate. It's light, easy to ride, and the fully fared version is a very sporty looking motorcycle with a more upright riding position compared to most sport bikes, making it much more comfortable to ride over long distances and around town. The GS500 is one of the best value bikes you can buy. Its suspension is comfortable and the bike handles very well. It has ample power, good handling and stylish looks, making it near on the ultimate utilitarian motorcycle. The fully fared F model in particular has a much bigger bike look about it as well. The biggest bike in this list is the Suzuki VX800. Its 805cc V-twin engine produces 63 horsepower, just a tad more than the Kawasaki 500. But the Suzuki's V-twin engine produces a lot more torque. While the Suzuki is somewhat larger, with a long wheelbase, it is still quite a small bike for an 800. And this combined with its excellent low-down torque does make it an easy bike to ride around town. The Suzuki also has a very plush and comfortable seat, making it ideal for longer trips. Although it's a naked bike, there are many types of aftermarket screens and fairings which can very easily be fitted to the bike if wind protection is an issue. The bike is very narrow, offering excellent cornering clearance, and its 5-spoke alloy wheels are very easy to keep clean. The bike also features a low maintenance shaft final drive and a very well spaced 5-speed gearbox which makes very good use of the bike's torque, meaning less gear changes. The bike only ticks over at about 4,000 revs at 60 miles per hour. This makes the VX800 very suitable for longer highway stints. Compared to the other bikes in this list, the XTX660's motard styling is worlds apart. For those of you who don't know what a motard motorcycle is, in a nutshell, they are basically a dirt bike made for street use, with a smaller diameter front wheel and road bike tyres fitted. The Yamaha seat is pretty high, but this isn't really an issue because the seat is also narrow, which makes it relatively easy to get your feet down at the lights. And because you sit up so high, the riding position is actually very good for round town riding, but not so out in the open road. All the other bikes previously mentioned are much better, as you do cop a lot of wind riding the XTX. It's not so much of an issue if you only have a short highway stint, but on longer trips it will certainly get tiring. But within the city limits, this bike kicks ass. It's very quick, and it's easy to safely negotiate small gaps in the traffic. The bike, however, doesn't particularly like getting too far down in the rev range. In slow-moving traffic, you might need to slip the clutch a little bit to avoid the bike lurching forward. But it isn't too much of a problem, and once you get used to it, it's fine. This bike looks amazing, and it will definitely put a smile on your dial every single time you ride it. And because of its huge amount of ground clearance, it's the only bike on this list that will very easily negotiate riding over curbs or speed bumps. While the purpose of speed bumps is obviously to slow traffic down, if you happen to have an XTX660, it does tend to have the opposite effect. To sum this bike up in one word, it's just fun. All of these bikes are a great second-hand buy, if you can find a good one that is. They are all ideal for a beginner, a workhorse, or just as a second bike.